A man rolled down his window and said, "Hey, everything okay?" He hollered at no particular person, as if he just liked to yell as loud as he could to get people's attention. A passenger's side door and a sliding door could be heard opening from around the van. "Get lost," the punk said that comprised the second layer of the semicircle. "Oh no, friend, we aren't lost. This is exactly where we are supposed to be," another said with anticipation. 5 guys came around the van and directly charged, hollering into the punks. The punks got immediately smashed, really having dealt with fairly even numbers of half-crazed people that fought like they were middle-aged berserkers. The so-called anti-fascists slinked away, and Luxon gave them all a hearty embrace. Several improvised weapons littered the ground that would have been used to brutal effect on Luxon. One of the guys scooped it all up into a plastic grocery bag he got from the van with his feet. He tied up the bag and tossed the weapons into the back of the dumpster, deep in where the weapons couldn't easily be retrieved. Luxon went to his car and got on his cane now, like he should have beforehand. "Guess this isn't leaving my side now." "And neither are we," his friends mentioned. Several nodded. He smiled, and they all smiled, and they all went back in for coffee. They bantered back and forth. "How many more are arriving?" "We're expecting 20 to 30 at least," the barista interjected as she brought everyone their beverages. "Not all at once, I hope," she smirked playfully. They all laughed, and she laughed nervously. They were behaving, though, so she didn't seem to mind much. "So how long until the event, you reckon?" They had a historical event that started in a few hours that had all the culminated documentaries of the Anglos, the Saxons, the Germanics, and the Norse. "We'll wait an hour or so and then head over. All the stragglers can meet us there." "Sounds good." They hung out and enjoyed lots of snacks and beverages. When enough people had arrived, they helped clean up and left a substantial tip. Chapter 9. Knuckles. Hanging out. Late morning. Knuckles hung out at the piers for about an hour or two. There were some nice fishermen fishing out in the freezing cold off the docks. Knuckles loved the camaraderie, and they exchanged fishing stories for a couple hours. In what seemed like no time at all, it was time for Knuckles to go pick up his software from the store. He wished them all good luck and went on his way. Knuckles got to the computer store in a few minutes of searching for it in town, then purchased his software disk. Everyone at the store was really nice to him, and he lamented how few of these stores were left. He texted his wife to let her know he got the software disk. She responded pleasantly, and he smiled to himself. "I'm such a lucky guy," he thought. Before he went to leave, he trip-checked. You always trip-check now to make sure you didn't get blocked by protesters or vehicle collisions or whatever else could happen. The roads already showed red, and it said it would take several hours for him to get home. He decided he would go make sure his vehicle was fueled up and get some lunch. That way he would have eaten and he would have snacks for the way home. "You never want to be without snacks," he thought to himself, as if it was the most important law in the world. He fueled up his vehicle and purchased some snacks. He couldn't decide which beef jerky he wanted, so he chose 2 of every pack. There were some steak ones and some pepperoni and some cheese and some meat combined. It was expensive, but having such great protein that lasted a long time was worth it. As Knuckles was checking out with all of his decisions on the counter with a $20 bill, a bunch of punks came in. He counted 12 or so. They didn't look so good. Something had happened to them. Knuckles had recalled passing a sign on his way in that said something to the effect of, "No hoods, no backpacks, no masks." The punks looked at Knuckles, stopped, and all stared. Their eyes got wide. They were all wearing backpacks, with hoodies on, and masks. The punk kids left the store immediately, which seems to give relief to the clerk as he stared out into the parking lot like a miracle happened. The clerk then looked at Knuckles and saw his fists balled. The clerk without hesitation told Knuckles that those bags of jerky were on him. The clerk handed the $20 bill back to Knuckles with the bags of preserved meats. Please take it. You've earned it." Knuckles didn't really understand, but he shrugged and said thank you as he exited the corner store. He did it once around the building and didn't see the punks anywhere. "Good," he thought to himself with a resolved nod. He looked at the big mountain in the distance and smiled, and he drove off to find somewhere that had lunch. Knuckles' phone told him there was a highly rated food place nearby that had decent parking. He drove around for a few minutes and arrived. Knuckle inquired to the waitress about their blueberry pancake stack, as he had heard great things about it. They explained how massive it was, and Knuckles was impressed. "I'll take that, and some bacon, and some sausage." "What to drink?" "Water's fine, thanks." Knuckles was immediately impressed that he didn't get a dirty look about only ordering water as a beverage. On top of the initial glass of water, they brought him an entire pitcher of ice water, all to himself. It took them a while to get the food out, but it was absolutely amazing. The pancakes were huge, and there was whipped cream topping, multiple kinds of syrup, and even more berries for extra toppings. He didn't know specifically what to do, so he put it all onto one plate and started scarfing it down as fast as he could. They came to check on him and said he was very thankful. Knuckles finished up his meal, filling his water glass several times. He was very satisfied all around. Chapter 10, Malaise. School time. Afternoon. Malaise had a weird day, but her shift was almost over. A guy had smashed into her and then stopped a robbery. He tipped her well, which was cool. And some Viking-looking people came in, and there was another fight outside. She didn't call the police because it looked like mutual combat. She'd seen a lot of that lately, and law enforcement was getting less and less involved. "Don't start nothing, there won't be nothing," she thought to herself. The robbery guy dropped a knife. She took it and put it in a drawer after covering it and taping it up with cardboard wrapping. She wrote "Danger, Knife" on the outside of the cardboard so everyone would be careful. Who knew how many crimes had been committed with it? She didn't want to be anywhere near that trashy blade. It was about time for her friend Darcy to come swap out with her. Her manager never showed up. Malaise stopped bothering trying to text her. The last 3 texts had gone unresponded to. She texted her friends to make sure she texted her friend to make sure she was coming in, and of course she was. There was a lull in the day, so Malaise cleaned. Before long, her friend came in, and it was near the end of Malaise's shift, and Malaise told her friend all about the day. Her friend didn't believe her at all. "Hey, before I forget, Malaise, I have that thing for you I was working on." They went in the back for a second to be out of everyone's view. Even though nobody was in the store, just human nature, the girl pulled out a mask with a giant beak. "Done for you, just before the party tonight." "Wow, thank you so much," Malaise said. "I don't know why you wanted this so much. It looks hideous, but I made it exactly to spec." Darcy was going to school to be a costume designer at the local university. The rest of the costume was complete except for this part. This was going to be a costume party tonight, and Malaise was going to nail it. "Thank you so much, Darcy." Malaise gave her a big hug. "You're welcome. Now hurry up. You're going to be late for class." Malaise took the mask and slipped it into her bag. Around that time, the bells of the door jingled, and it was time for Darcy to get back to work. Malaise headed for school. This was important for another reason besides class. Most of her costume was also at the school. The costume had to be worked on there, since that's where most of Darcy's equipment was, and she never brought it home. On her way to the campus, she reminded herself to get the costume before she headed home. The trip was uneventful, though she noticed a lot of activity at the grocery store when she passed. Soon she was in her advanced chemistry class, and the professor was explaining how to combine various chemicals to stabilize them. Malaise felt the defensive spray canisters in her pockets, and it gave her an idea. She decided for her big graduation project she would develop a system that had CS, but in sticky mode and with pepper. It would revolutionize the defense industry for non-lethal applications. She gave herself a mental pat on the back and spent the rest of the day with her school goggles and gloves on, trying to figure out different methods. She used the labels on the cans as her framework, and before it was time to go, she had some workable prototypes. Unfortunately, in the process of her sciencing, her 2 cans of defensive spray got ruined. She pouted and looked around for a solution so she would be safe going home. She had several bags of these sticky CS balls made, so they would have to do, and hopefully they worked. She didn't have any freshmen to try her product on, unfortunately. That made her giggle. She was careful to not put her hands on her face. The product was very potent and sticky. Malaise carefully peeled off the gloves and threw them in the trash, and she put all her notes on how to make the product in her bag. It was time for her to head home for the evening. Wanted to get home before dark. At the last minute, she remembered the rest of her party suit, and she was good to go. Chapter 11. Luxon. Event and Dinner. Afternoon.